And as of right now, again, we're just going off of the league website. So bear with us, and as some things will likely change in terms of
Yes.
the selection order, specifically starting in the first round. But as of right now, the NWSL first round of the draft has New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC with the number 1 overall pick, and number 2 and number 3 belong to Orlando Pride. Number 4 belongs to Racing Louisville FC. Angel City FC is slotted at number 5, and number 6 North Carolina Courage, number 7 Chicago Red Stars, number 8 Houston Dash, number 9 North Carolina Courage, number 10 is listed as New Jersey North Gotham FC, but this is again one of those picks where we think could possibly shift to Kansas City Current, depending on some conditional things within previous trades between the two sides. But as of the league's website, as of now, it's listed as Gotham for number 10, number 11 North Carolina Courage, and number 12 Portland Thorns FC. So nearly everyone getting a chance to make a selection in that first round, with the exception of possibly Kansas City and San
Washington
Diego Wave
Spirit.
FC and Washington Spirit. So 3 clubs out of the 12 might be getting a look at some players in this first round alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is where we will see some movement. Up until there are some like asterisks to this first round draft order about what could change. There are some changes that'll happen midnight the night before. There are trades that'll be happening during the draft, as most Americans know who have watched drafts previously, not even NWSL drafts, but other drafts as well. I think it would behoove Washington Spirit to try to wiggle their way into this first round and make a trade for one of these picks. This is a team that in Washington Spirit that is pretty light on their roster right now. And as a club that just won the NWSL championship 2 seasons ago, I think they could get some top talent, but they're not in this first round. I think you look at someone like a North Carolina Courage that has 3 picks in this first round. That's impressive to see because they also need to bulk up, right? Like when we look at the past year and what happened, there may be only 1 or 2 teams that I'm like, they're going to be fine if they stick with the same roster that they have, or they've made a lot of changes in the offseason. I look at a team like Kansas City Current, what they've been able to do in the offseason, getting some forwards, getting some midfielders from Chicago Red Stars and Morgan Gautral and Colaprico, DiBernardo, excuse me. These are players that have bulked up the Kansas City midfield. And this is a team that went all the way to the NWSL championship last year and the final, and then lost to Portland. So they have a good base and they have a good foundation. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see them make too many crazy picks in this draft.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm curious. We talked about that 10 spot, the number 10 pick in this first round, and you bring up Kansas City. I'm looking at some of these teams, and I'm curious if maybe they're interested in trading out of this first round.
Yeah.
I think Kansas City is a team that has shown in their short history in the NWSL that they're not intimidated to make some headlines in the draft, to move some money around, make some ambitious picks. Is this the year where we maybe see them continue that trend, or is this the year where we see them maybe transition a little bit and sort of see themselves, kind of maybe trade out of that? Are they in a place currently where they want to sort of keep their core intact and continue to build off of what they've already established as a franchise, or do they want to continue adding pieces through the draft for this roster? So I'm looking at those teams who might not necessarily be in this first round. Are they going to trade in, or are they going to be content to be, to hold off and maybe make picks in the later rounds? Is a team like I would also maybe look at North Carolina Courage in that aspect. They are in a similar position, I think, as they were last year. They had a number of first round picks for the 2022 draft, and they made some really, really good ones. People obviously were talking about the epic draft class that came out of 2022, and Diana Ordonez was a huge part of that for this North Carolina Courage side. Ended up going on a tear, making a name for herself as a finalist in the Rookie of the Year candidates. So I'm curious if with the handful of picks that they have, perhaps do they want to package those? Are they trying to move
Right.
higher in the draft? Are they content with maybe, packaging them or trading one or two or all to trade out or et cetera? I think with that many in this first round, I think you maybe have a little bit of an advantage there, is where you could play, is that you could still roll your dice in the draft, or you can, try to continue to build with what you've already got with the courage, because again, they chose a pretty good class in that first round
Yeah.
just last year. Do they want to continue to just sort of, build off of what they are growing currently, with the courage? So I'm eager to see what head coach Sean Nahas and his staff are going to do with these picks. But I also look at a club like Orlando Pride, and they've got multiple picks in this draft,
Yeah.
and I feel a little bit opposite. I don't think they necessarily package those things, those
Nope.
picks to leverage for something else. I think with this draft, going number 2, going number 3, if you're not trying to trade higher for that number 1, that maybe you want to stay in this category or these two positions right here. If you're a team like the Pride that finally gave the nod to Seb Hines, he's officially your head coach, and giving the opportunity to build some things from the ground up. I would hope that the Pride stay with these two selections. What do you think?
I think that Orlando should keep their selections where they are at this point, because the fact that they have these picks, number 2 and number 3, those are really good positionings. Maybe they're a little tough because they are so high and you are behind Gotham, because you don't know what Gotham's going to do at that point if Gotham holds it, right? So if Gotham trades, then Orlando has to juggle this, but it would behoove Orlando Pride to keep those number 2, number 3 picks. They could use some roster strengthening the way that Orlando didn't have the best season last year. Even the year before, they finished 10th in 2022. But there are some bright lights heading into 2023 season. They've re-signed Brazilian international Marta. They have younger players like Michaela Clough, who have made big impacts last year. Darian Jenkins, who was traded into Orlando at the start of last year, that they're looking to build on. And as you mentioned, Seb Hines, the new head coach for Orlando Pride, he started to build something at the end of 2022. Can he continue to do that? He's had some time to look at the squad that he has together and figure out what's going to happen, how they can move forward with that. Orlando needs to keep those picks 100%, pick up some big players. But I mean, I mentioned Washington Spirit earlier. This is a club that needs to get some players. They need to get some bodies on their roster. When you look at their current roster right now, goalkeeper position, they have 1 player listed, Aubrey Kingsbury. Defenders, they have 2 players rostered, Emily Sonnet and
Yeah.
Staub. They lost Kelly O'Hara, remember. Forwards, they've got Ashley Hatch, Trinity Rodman, Tara McKeown, Maddie Elwell. That's 4. They can't even roster a field right now. Washington Spirit needs to bulk up. They have to.
Yeah.
They have to. They
Teams,
have to.
categorizing teams under, clubs who need bodies. It's like Washington Spirit could be one of those clubs. Obviously, Chicago Red Stars. There's huge question marks in their midfield now.
Yep.
I would even consider like Racing Louisville, Angel
Mhm.
City, even in some capacity, in some positions, to be, a couple of those teams that need bodies, at least in positionally, like on the pitch in certain areas.
Yep.
So I would maybe have like those 4 clubs as teams that will want to maybe try to stay within the draft and try, or at least try to utilize the draft to, make a couple picks and continue to build some depth and flesh out some of the rosters.
Yeah, I think Angel City is a team that I'm really interested to see what Freya Coombe does in the draft this year, because when you look at how Angel City did their expansion draft and then the regular draft last year, they definitely acquired good players, but they also acquired players that were dealing with injury, right? So how they are being built back into the roster, specifically I'm looking at someone like defender Sarah Gordon, formerly with Chicago and now with Angel City. But Freya Coombe in 2022 didn't rotate a lot of players throughout games. She had a very, very short bench that she used. So I honestly wouldn't be too surprised if Angel City doesn't like go gung ho in this draft because they like what they have. They don't like a lot of rotation. Could that hurt them in the long run? Yes, I think so. With injuries, with the World Cup year coming up, there's a lot of question marks. But I also think Houston Dash is a team that they could acquire some heavy hitters in this NWSL draft just with what they have in their midfield right now. They've got some namestays in Groom, Sophie Schmidt, Marissa Vigiano, but can you bulk that up? Can you get some depth and look at the long game for Houston Dash? Because now that they've got new coach, there, Sam Lady coming in from OL Reign to take over the Houston Dash team. It's going to be his first year there and coaching with this squad, but can he look to the next 2 years, the next 3 years? You get some of these draft picks in, even if they're later round draft picks, but that's how you build. That's how you start a new foundation with a new coach at a club that is looking to make its return to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to note too before we maybe pivot to the actual prospects for this draft is keeping an eye on those new head coaches, the head coaches with new teams and how they're going to navigate this draft. So I think Sam Lady with the Dash is a big one to keep an eye on. Obviously, Seb Hines, this is going to be the year one of officially being the head coach and having a full season under your belt as a head coach with the club. I would consider Juan Carlos Amaros as well with Gotham.
Yeah,
you're going to be there with day one of 2023, to the end. How are you going to navigate a draft moving forward? Even Mark Parsons, he's back in the NWSL, but back with Washington Spirit, and like you mentioned, there's some holes to fill there. So I'm very, very curious to sort of see, year draft year one head coaches with new teams and how they're going to navigate things. Let's keep an eye on those. Huh?
Portland Thorns too. Reed Wilkinson. Yeah, she's not there anymore. So what's going to happen at Portland? But Portland's roster
Karina
also
LeBlanc is gonna have her work cut out for her. But you know what? Honestly, Chris Petroselli as well for the Red Stars. This was a head coach that didn't come in for the Red Stars until well after the NWSL draft. He got hired with the club and brought on deep into their preseason. The draft had already happened. So this is technically going to be a first time NWSL draft experience for him as well. So there's a lot. I think about half of the clubs or so, for sort of first year coaches.
And Chicago needs players, right? You look at it's a World Cup year. You look at Mallory Pugh, Mallory Swanson, who will most likely be going to the World Cup, Alyssa Nair. These are players that you have to have a little bit of depth in those positions and what you're able to do. And they lost their midfield trio, Danny Colaprico, Vanessa DiBernardo, Morgan Gautral. They still have a lot of players on their roster that maybe fans didn't see at all in 2022 due to maternity leave, due to injuries, due to sicknesses, but they'll be back. So, but they still need to bulk up a little bit. These coaches have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, no, I mean the midfield specifically, right? For Chicago. I mean, they went from, you're talking about a franchise that went from having what was considered a top 3, top 4 midfield in the league. And in one off season, that completely being undone, right? So they in free agency, they've said farewell to Colaprico, Morgan Gautral, Vanessa DiBernardo, Sarah Woldmo, somebody who, made the decision to retire after, now being a mother and giving birth to her son. So, one off season, you no longer have those big pieces in the midfield that sort of carried you through in so many other seasons in the past. So I think that's a pretty glaring area for a team need for them going into this draft. We'll see how they navigate it.